Welcome to the WTF Podcast. My name is Molly Smith, and I'm on a mission to equip 1 million people with the tools to recognize when they're in the funk, and more importantly, how to pivot out of it. By tuning in today, you've joined me on this mission, and I'm so grateful that you are here. Guys, I have been itching to record this episode. This one's been on my mind for a while, so we are going to just dive right in. Something that I've noticed both in my own life and in the lives of the high achievers that I work with is how good we get at pushing through. We learn how to handle a lot. Deadlines, decisions, logistics, family stuff, the mental load that comes with being responsible for things and people. From the outside, it looks like strength. It looks like resilience. It looks like somebody who has it all together. And for a long time, I believed that. But what I didn't fully understand and what I see over and over again now is that all of that pushing comes with a cost. Not always a dramatic one. More often, it's subtle, quiet, a low-grade stress that the body carries without much conscious awareness. That part of the nervous system that's designed to keep us alert and safe never really gets to take a break because there's always something else coming, something else to prepare for, something or someone else who is depending on us. And eventually, and here's the kicker, this state starts to feel normal. It shows up in familiar ways like tight shoulders, shallow breathing, and emotions that don't have time to feel. Not because anything is wrong, but because it's how we have learned to function, especially if being capable, dependable, and strong has been part of our identity for a long time. Now, this is the part that is so easy to miss because a lot of what we are carrying emotionally becomes background noise. The pressure, the responsibility, the tension, it's always there. So we just stop questioning it. We just assume that this is what life feels like when we're the one people rely on. What's interesting is what happens when there's even just the smallest pause or break. When a feeling actually gets named instead of ignored, stuffed, or bypassed. Not because anything on the outside suddenly changes, because there is a shift internally in us. You're no longer pretending you're fine when you're not. There's something grounding, a kind of honesty. Just being real with yourself about what is actually there and present in that moment. One of the biggest shifts in my work and in my own life came when I truly understood this idea. We can't shift what we aren't aware of. If we don't name what we're feeling, it starts showing up in our reactions, our decisions, and how we move through the world. And this matters even more if we are building something meaningful, whether it's a business, a career, or a life that feels good to live. Emotion is the frequency that we're operating from. It's the energy we often lead with without realizing it. And no amount of strategy can override the emotional state we are living in. Can I get an amen? What I often see in high achievers and what I've experienced myself is how easy it is to lose connection with how we feel when life becomes about managing, juggling, and holding everything together. Autopilot kicks in. And autopilot is very, very efficient, but it's also disconnected. It bypasses emotion, and it means that it bypasses your intuition, your clarity, and alignment along with it. That's why emotional literacy and awareness isn't fluffy work. It's foundational. I believe it's one of the most important muscles entrepreneurs and high achievers need to build in 2026 if they want success that actually feels good. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about in a kind of a real life example, okay? So imagine this. You're running a business. Things are feeling pretty good. Things are steady. And then you open your email and you see a message that you weren't expecting. A client is canceling their contract with you. No warning, no long explanation, just done. This moment right here, this is the fork in the road. And what happens next actually has very little to do with strategy and everything to do with how that moment is processed emotionally. Let's take the path on the left first. The business owner who has not yet built a lot of emotional literacy and awareness yet reads the email. They immediately feel it. The drop in the stomach, the spike of panic, maybe the hit to their ego or their confidence. But instead of acknowledging that, they blow right past. They go straight into reaction mode. They start replying to that email, wondering what they did wrong, thinking about the revenue that they're losing, thinking about how it reflects on them as a business owner. And before they've even taken a breath, they are in full-on fix-it mode. They draft a response to save the client at all costs, offering discounts they already know they'll regret. They bend on boundaries that exist for a reason. And they promise things that don't feel aligned and how they want to run their business. And it may work. The client might stay, but it comes at a cost. Resentment, second guessing, that quiet feeling of, I shouldn't have done that. All because the emotion driving the moment was never acknowledged. It was bypassed. So now let's rewind and take the path on the right. Same email, same cancellation, same emotional hit, because that part's human, right? The pit in the stomach, the bruised ego, the hit to the confidence. The difference is what happens next. The business owner recognizes those emotions surfacing and pauses for a moment instead of reacting instinctively. They take a moment to feel the panic in the pit of their stomach. They don't spiral, and they don't pretend they're fine either. Instead of firing a response from that emotional charge, they pause. They close the laptop and they get up and they change their state. This is one of the best things that I've ever learned from Ed Milet is changing your state. So good. Maybe they go to the gym. Maybe they take a walk. Maybe they do something physical that helps their body settle before their brain tries to solve anything. They give themselves space to think clearly. Once the racing mind has a moment to process, they can ask themselves a very grounded question. Is there anything I can do that's actually within my control? And if I respond, can I do it without compromising my values, my boundaries, or the long-term health of my business? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's no. But this response doesn't come from panic, friends. It comes from a grounded, steadier place. So the next day, they send a thoughtful reply. They thank the client genuinely. They honor the work that they did together, and they leave the door open without grasping or overgiving. Regardless of the outcome, they walk away feeling like they've handled the situation well. Not because it didn't sting, but because they didn't abandon themselves in the process. And here's the part that matters. Both business owners faced the same situation. Both felt the initial emotion. The difference wasn't intelligence, it wasn't experience, and it sure as heck wasn't strategy. The difference is what happened before the action. One bypassed the emotion and let it drive their response. The other named it, acknowledged it, and gave themselves enough space to choose how they wanted to move forward. That is emotional literacy in real life. And this is why I say it's one of the most important muscles entrepreneurs and high achievers can build. It's not just for success. It's for success that doesn't quietly erode you along the way. And when something like this hits, that unexpected email, that moment of uncertainty, the body often goes into protection mode before the mind has a chance to catch up. Can I get an amen? There's tension, tightness, and a sense of urgency to do something. And that's where one of the practices that I come back to again and again comes in. I love this as one of the tools in my tool belts, EFT tapping. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's so quick and easy to do. It simply gives your body a signal of safety while you acknowledge what's already there. Because when the nervous system is activated, logic is not often very helpful. The body is scanning for threat, even if that threat is emotional pressure, uncertainty, fear, or doubt of what this moment might mean. EFT creates a pause in that loop. As you tap, you're not trying to change the feeling. You're not reframing it. You're simply allowing yourself to name what is true in that moment and creating enough space for something new to become possible. And something interesting happens when the body feels acknowledged instead of overwritten. The intensity starts to soften, not because anything was forced, because the nervous system finally feels heard. For people who are used to being strong, used to pushing through, this can be a profound shift. It replaces the powering through with processing, and it creates enough internal space to choose what comes next instead of reacting on autopilot. So if there's one thing I hope really landed today, it's this. Emotional literacy is not about being calm all the time. It's about being honest with yourself in the moments that matter. It's noticing what's coming up instead of blowing past it. It's naming what you're feeling instead of letting it quietly drive the bus. And it's creating enough space for you to choose how you want to respond rather than reacting from habit or fear. The body-based practices we talked about don't replace awareness, they support it. They help you stay present enough to use the awareness that you have. And that's what actually changes things. Not because the hard moments are going to stop happening, because they won't. Everybody knows life is going to life, but because you stop abandoning yourself when they do. Can I get an amen? Yes. That's how emotional literacy becomes a real lived skill. And that's why I believe it is one of the most important muscles that entrepreneurs and high achievers can build if they want success that doesn't just look good on the outside, but actually feels good on the inside and is sustainable. And just so you know, this is the work that I do with my clients, helping them build that emotional literacy, support their nervous system, and learn how to respond instead of react when the real life moments hit. So success doesn't come at the cost of themselves. Friends, if this episode was impactful at all, please consider sharing it with somebody who might need to hear the message. I'm on a mission to equip 1 million people with the tools to recognize when they're in the funk and, more importantly, pivot out of it. And you are a part of that mission. And if you want to continue the conversation, hit us up in the Next Best Step Facebook group. See you next time, everyone.